Hello everyone! My name is Sabrina Melodieuse. Welcome to my channel. In today's tutorial, we are going to learn how to pick up and knit stitches along these three sides, so that when we have picked up all those stitches, you will be ready to be working in the rounds. Now this tutorial was a request. So here we are to learn how to do this right now. And this is the work that we have. And we're going to start with this side to pick up and knit stitches. Then we'll go to the bottom here and then the other side. Now we need to learn, what does pick up and knit stitches mean? I'll tell you that in a second. But this is the bottom of a bag, and what I had to do was cast on 40 stitches and work 60 rows in garter stitch. Hope you can see that this is garter stitch. And what is garter stitch? It is basically just knit every stitch every row for 60 rows, and then when you're done you will be ready to pick up and knit the stitches here, so that you can proceed on the body of the work and work in the rounds. But what does pick up and knit stitches mean? Okay, so sometimes in the world of knitting, certain terms are really quite confusing, and especially when you're a beginner, you are thrown in a world of confusion and frustration, and sometimes give up, when actually it is quite simple. What does pick up and knit stitches mean? It doesn't mean to pick up stitches and go back to knit. No, no, no. It is very simple. Okay, so now that I have done my 60 rows with my 40 stitches, here I'm very lucky now that I have one of the sides with the 40 stitches right here. So now the next step is we're going to have to go to that side and pick up and knit 30 stitches. Now this is going to be very, very easy. So let's start. As I will start how to pick up the stitches, I will explain exactly what pick and knit stitches are. So now that you have that bit done, you don't need to do anything else to that. You've got your 40 stitches. So I will put my knitting to be ready, just like so. And now the next bit, this is completely optional. This is what I like to do, but you don't have to. This is just something to really help me, because if I have to undo some stitches, or to count stitches, I like to do that. So you've got your 40 stitches, and then here you need to pick up your 30 stitches. But before I do, I'm going to put a stitch marker right here, and I will explain why in a little moment. Now we are ready to pick up and knit stitches. So we need to really understand, what does pick up and knit stitches mean. So here on this side they say we have to pick up 30 stitches, and when you do garter stitch, 2 rows equals 1 ridge, and we have 30 ridges here, as you can see. So the ridges are right here. This is a ridge, a ridge, a ridge, and what we're going to do is pick up and knit 1 stitch per ridge. I hope my instructions will be clear enough. 1 ridge will be 1 stitch, and that's alright, because we have 30 ridges here, which will mean this will be our 30 stitches. So pick up and knit. We will do that right now. So I think that the camera is a little bit closer now, which is good, unless I can bring it down still. Okay, because we need to focus. So the ridges are here, as you can see. So now what we need to do is turn this work so that this side is facing you and that you are now ready to pick up and knit stitches on each ridge. Now pick up and knit, I keep saying that. It's a very, very important step because you're going to pick up the stitches, and as you pick up the stitch you are knitting it at the same time. Why is that? Because we're just using a knit stitch. It's that simple. That's all there is to it. So in that very first ridge here, it is always awkward when it's the first ridge because it's at the corner. But once you are done with that, then it will be easier for the rest of that bit. So let's do that, shall we? How do you pick up the stitches? So you go into the ridge, as you can see here. Here's the ridge. Right there at the edge, there's like a little hole. I hope you can see that right here. So you're going to go into it with your needle, this one. You will only work with the one needle for now, as you're going to pick up the stitches all around. So you're going to go into here, and you're going to, with your working yarn here from before, because you haven't cut your yarn or anything, you're still going to use that same yarn, and you're just going to knit that just like this is a stitch. Okay, use that as a stitch and just knit it. There we are. We have now picked up our first stitch. Now when you pick up your stitch and knit it, don't do it too tight because otherwise you will struggle for the next round. So now we're going to go into the next ridge, which is right here, and you're going to do that again. See, into this hole here, I'm going to show you there. It's the end of the rows. You are going to put your needle in here and do a knit stitch. Just like that came from the other needle, you're just going to knit it. Just like so. You now have 2 stitches. So we're going to go into the next ridge, which is here, and you're going to pick up another stitch. There we are. Shall we do that another couple of times? So the next ridge is right here. So we're going to insert our needle into this little ridge here, which there is a hole, as you can see. So you put your needle in here and use that like it is a stitch. So you're going to knit that. Let's do that one more time. Next ridge is right here. So you're going to do the same. Put your needle into this end of this ridge, just like it's a stitch, and you're going to knit it. And you now have another stitch. So far we have picked up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you have another 25 to do. So I am going to pause and I will let you do that, and I will meet you at the end of this row and I will tell you what to do next. So I have now picked up all my stitches on that side. I have 30 stitches. So with this here, it was very useful because when you are counting your stitches, you don't want necessarily to start counting with those here, but with a stitch marker in place you can start to count from here. So from there to there you have your 30 stitches, or however many stitches you do, since I don't know what project you're working on. So now that you have got all your stitches, all you have to do is we are going to now pick up and knit stitches on this side. You have got your 30 stitches, remember, so you don't need to do anything else to that. You have picked and knit your stitches, so you don't need to do anything else for now. You're going to leave that as it is here with your working yarn right there. This is, do not confuse that bit, because for me this is my tail end. Ignore that. You're going to pick up your working yarn that you have used since here, and you're now going to focus onto this side, okay? And this is where you started to cast on your stitches. So how are we going to do that? It is very simple. So I'm using another stitch marker. I'm going to put it right here. And now what we need to do is, for my particular pattern, I have got 40 stitches here to pick up from the cast on edge. So let's see if we can do this. Okay. Right. With your working yarn, make sure you pick up your working yarn, and into the very first stitch of this row here, where you get all your cast on stitches. I hope you can see that because the lighting is not working with me. You're going to pick up and knit 40 stitches just like you did on that side, but this time on the stitches from the cast on edge. So into this very first stitch here, you're going to knit that just like it's a stitch, and here you have picked up your first stitch. Then you're going to go into the next one. You can see it quite clearly right here. You're going to pick up and knit there another stitch. There is number 2. And then you will go into the next one, which is this one, and you're going to put your needle in here, and you're going to use that as a stitch to knit it. And this is how you pick up stitches. Okay, I'm sorry, I can't see what I'm doing because you know the lighting is so bad. I really hope you can see that now. So here is the stitch. I keep catching the yarn for some reason. So let's go back into that hole and pick up the stitch. Fingers crossed it's worked this time. Yes! So now the next hole is right here. We're going to insert the needle into it, and we're going to knit it just like it is a stitch. And this is how you pick up your stitch and knit it. Do this one more time or a couple of times. Next one is right here. So you're going to knit that and pick the stitch. There. Next one is here. Insert your needle into that hole, and you're going to pick and knit this stitch. That's it. That's all there is to it. So I will let you finish this row, and I will meet you at the end of this here, and I will tell you what to do next to pick up the stitches on this particular edge. So I will see you in a minute. Now that you have finished this particular row, you have picked up your 40 stitches from the cast on edge. So now this is what you have in total. So far you have the first stitches that you started from your very last row with the 40 stitches. Then you went onto the side here and picked up one stitch for every ridge, mounting to a total of 30 stitches. For me anyway. For you it could be a completely different number, but I think you know what I mean. You just have to pick up one stitch per ridge, which is just like that at the end of every ridge here. Then you flip your work to this side, and these are the stitches that you have picked up from the cast on edge. And you have picked up, for me it is 40 stitches, and for you it is however many stitches. So now we have one more side to do, and this is just like this one here. At the end, sorry, of every row of every 2 rows of every ridge, you're going to pick up one stitch per ridge. So are we ready to get started with this final side here. You're going to pick up your working yarn once again. Once you have picked up your stitches, you don't need to do anything else but turn your work so that this side is facing you. I am adding a stitch marker here because then it will make it easier to count my 30 stitches from right here, from the blue stitch marker. Okay, so we are ready to pick up our stitches from every ridge, just like the other side. The first ridge is right here, so you turn your work so that this is facing you just like so. And just once again, because it's the very first stitch here, it is always a little bit tight to get into it. But trust me, the rest will be much easier. So in here, you can see there's like a little hole here. You're going to insert your needle and use that like it is a stitch and just knit it. And you have now picked up and knit one stitch. So now you will go into the next ridge, which is right here. There, you see there's like a hole there. Put your needle into that hole and you're going to knit it just like it is a stitch. And by doing that, you have now picked up another stitch. Let's go into the next one, which is right here. Pick up and knit the stitch. There we go. Let's do that a couple more times. You see here the hole. You're going to put your needle into there and just pick up and knit the stitch. Here we are, just like so. Let's do that again. Into this next one here, you see the hole right there. Insert a needle, pick up and knit the stitch. And this is all there is to it, really. You're going to finish this side and I will meet you at the end. And now that you have finished picking all the stitches from the ridges, which for me it is 30 stitches, well, this is now what you have. You have now completed picking up all the stitches from all sides. Now that you have done that, here is where you are now ready to begin to work in the rounds. You see, here is the needle and you are now ready to work into the round. Have all your stitches picked up. And so let's start from the beginning. This is where you started with the stitches you already had on your needle from the last row of your garter stitch. So you've got your 40 stitches here. Then you flip to the side and you picked up 30 stitches from each ridge that you have that were formed by each 2 rows at the end of the rows. Then you flipped your work around and you picked up 40 stitches or however many stitches you have from the cast on edge right here, and then you flipped around and you have picked up your stitches once again from all the ridges here. So you now have gone all around, as you can see, and you are now really ready to work in the round, whichever pattern you will use. So I think I'm going to improvise and I will make a bag and design something myself. Now, before you start working into the round, you will have to place a stitch marker here so that you know when the beginning of the round begins. And I think usually in every pattern that you use, they will tell you to do that. Place marker at the beginning of each round so that you know exactly where the round begins or ends. For me, it will be here. So that's it. This concludes this tutorial. I hope this was helpful enough for you to know how to pick up the stitches so that you can now work in rounds. Oh, and if you want to see the back side, here's how it looks. There should be like a little ridge at this side here. You can see this was formed as you were picking up stitches, but it is very minimal. But this is the right side. So it is pretty neat to do that. You can do hats, bags, and all kinds of stuff with working in rounds. I'm going to now stop recording and I'm going to design something myself. I've used this from a different pattern, but I am now going to carry on and design something myself. So stay tuned to find out what I'm going to design. It's going to be a bag, but what stitch am I going to use? You will find out very soon. So once again, I hope this was helpful enough for you guys to follow. If you have any more questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. My email address is in the description box below. I will be more than happy to just answer all your questions or anything else. And thank you very much for watching, and until the next time, happy knitting and crochet everyone!